Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? All right. Today we're going to talk about something that is I'm very passionate about, and it's the future. Um, and it's under the umbrella of cybersecurity. And there are a lot of different um, paths one can take if they want to embark in the cybersecurity field. But today we're going to talk about one thing that's very, very important now, especially with the emergence of AI and security and data breach and things like that. So I'll start off talking about GRC, the Government Regulation and Compliance, right? So companies now, they store a lot of data on their computers, and some of them sell that data, and they have this data. Now that governments around the world, they have to put regulations on companies so that that data is safe, that protects the consumers, protects people's personal data, because it can be stolen and used for nefarious purposes, right? So now with the emergence of computers and using our data online to access bank accounts and various things that we need to use personal identification, there needs to be more security. So companies now have to be in compliance with certain regulations, and there are one of the international guidelines is the ISO 27001, right? And it's a standard that provides companies with the necessary know-how for protecting the most valuable information. Um, so let me break it down. The three principles of the ISO 27001 is confidentiality, right? Only authorized persons have the right to access this information. The second part is integrity, okay? Only authorized persons can change the information. And so that is really important, because we don't want somebody changing the information where they're not authorized. And the third part is the availability, right? That's important. We have to be able to access that when we need it, right? The information must be accessible and authorized persons whenever it's needed. Okay, so those are the three principles of the ISO. So the ISO is the International Standards Operation. So, and it's international. That's what the I stands for. So it's different. The standard that different countries around the world have agreed upon on how it the compliance should be, right? So so we talked a little bit about that, and so why do we need it, right? Well, we need it definitely to comply with legal requirements, right? Because companies now, they have to comply with the legal requirements, and there's increasing laws and regulations and contractual requirements related to information security. So that's definitely important, right? So the main philosophy is to prevent security incidents from happening, and every incident, large or small, it obviously costs money. Therefore, by preventing them, a company will save a lot of money, and also they are in compliance with the law, because they don't want to get fined or lose contracts. So if they have a contract with the government, they need to follow that compliance, and they need to be in compliance with the ISO 27001, right? What else? We can better organization. Typically, fast-growing companies don't have the time to stop and define their processes and procedures. So the implementation of ISO 27001 is it ensures that they're compliant, and encourages companies to write down their main processes, right? So that they know what they're supposed to do, right? Okay, so we're good on that. Let's explore a little bit more about that. So we talked about the focus is on confidentiality, right? We talked about the focus is on integrity and availability, and so therefore the main philosophy of the ISO is based on a process managing risk. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're managing risks, and then we need to find out where the risks are, right? So we can prevent them from happening, and then systematically treating them. So we do that through security controls, safeguards, right? So we have usually a company will have a compliance officer that that does that. So okay. So what are the ISO 270 control safeguards, right? There's many of them, but I'm just going to keep it simple so we can, because this is an introduction into it. The controls can be organizational. In the organization, they have different procedures, different checks and balances to make sure that people are following privacy laws to prevent a breach. Can be actually physical. They can actually lock certain rooms up so that and only certain people have access to that room. It can be human related and technological. So there's different ways to safeguard. So yeah. So yeah, that's where we are now. So organizational controls are implemented and defined by certain rules and as well expected behavior from users and certain equipment and software and systems that are used in the correct way. Physical controls are primarily implemented by using equipment or devices that have a physical interaction with people and objects. And technological controls are primarily implemented in informational systems using software, hardware, and firmware components added to the system. So, yeah, those are different ways to safeguard. Now, a company can go for the ISO 2700 certification. And they do that by inviting a credit certification board to perform the certification audit. And if the audit is successful, they're issued the certificate, right? And this certificate will mean that the company is fully compliant. They are following that regulations, and they will be audited probably like every 3 years, somewhere around there, and then hopefully they pass. So they will get the certificate, and the certificate will mean, like I said, they're fully compliant. Companies now have, when they are compliant, they usually will have an analyst to ensure that they are following those guidelines and they're still compliant. So that's just kind of a summary of why it's important, what it is, the GRC, the government regulation and compliant, how that relates to companies with data. There are different companies that are in different sectors. There's healthcare, for example. People have their data, their information, their health information, their health records, private information that needs to be protected. And there's different bodies that fall under that. There's HIPAA and so forth. So there's other guidelines that companies need to follow. So there'd be more. As time goes on, there'll probably be more, but we're just focusing right now on the ISO 27001, right? So, like I said, so there's healthcare, there's finance, and as we know, banking is definitely your banking information definitely needs to be, that data needs to be secured and so forth. So, yes, today I hope that you got some basic understanding of how this process works, and one of the ways that we protect your data, and how companies must comply, and why they must comply actually is the bigger what's actually is even more important is why they must comply, because they need to protect your data. And we want to definitely hold them to a certain standard so that there's not a data breach, right? Because no one wants their data used in a malicious way, or or be taken advantage of. That would be even worse, right? So, so that is it for today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.